Certainly we incorporated technology with them almost from birth. There were some studies shown that some of the videos that had been put out by like Baby Einstein, and HBO put out a series it was called Classical Baby, that would encourage children to learn how to love classical music early on, recognize colors, shapes, numbers, letters, that sort of thing. So we would have them watch a video every once in a while, just because, again, too, that's the world we live in, and we knew that that would be how children would learn.
So we started letting Kimberly use technology once she was able to start communicating with us and showing interest in other things. So that was around 18 to 24 months.
So I think Chloe and Kendall started right around maybe 8 or 9, I think, for Chloe, and right around 7 for Kendall.
They got devices when they were, I think, 8 or 9 years old. They both got iPads, and initially we used it just for educational things, like you could only download apps that were educational. That slowly has morphed into, as they got older, allowing them to play more games just to be kind of socially accepted in their circles, because that's a big deal for kids. I don't want my kids to be the only ones walking around not knowing what Fortnite is. So you try to strike that balance between sometimes even fooling them into thinking that they're playing where they're actually learning something, and giving them some downtime to play a game just for fun.
Both of them went on a lot of hikes. My wife and I spent a lot of time outdoors with them. So generally speaking, the only amount of television would have been more or less white noise for them. At toddler age, they definitely watched cartoons and stuff like that for sure in the house, but nothing on like a handheld level or anything like that. It was always just whatever, wholesome stuff was on TV.
I'm lucky that my kids really self-impose their own limitations on their screen time. They have a good understanding of striking a balance between playing outside, interacting with their family, and then allowing them to have some just sort of decompression time alone with their devices. So I think maybe my situation is more unique in that as a parent I haven't found the need to impose timelines or restrictions, but I certainly would if I ever felt that it was necessary. And I have in the past when grades have become an issue. I find that technology gives us something to take away from them that's a lot more painful than maybe my parents were able to take away from me. I mean, they couldn't take anything away from me if my grades fell. I just had to sit in my room, which was painful. But the threat of losing a device that is such a part of their life is really handy for a parent, because you can get some drastic behavioral changes quickly just using that as a threat.
There's no limited time for me actually, but I usually use it for like maybe 2 to 3 hours a day, because I think that it's a little too much for unlimited. Actually, no, because I feel like they're younger and they have a lot less to do than the older kids like us.
We're pretty strict about social media platforms and not messaging and most of that stuff. They have a couple areas where they can bounce back and forth between friends, but it's monitored by my wife and I. Otherwise, it's strictly gaming and videos and TV and stuff like that. But, we cut them off. We try and cut them off right around bedtime, which doesn't happen often. And, about a half hour later or so, we'll come in and take them if it's not a school night. Most of the time, weekends, we'll let them have them much later into the evening, sometimes 10, 11 o'clock, depending. Like we're in vacation time now, so they get it for a little bit longer. But school nights, it's always out of their hands about 15 minutes before bed.
Probably like most of the day, and at like night I have to give it to, like my device to my mom.
Why do you have to give it to your mom?
Because I have to like go to sleep or something, or eat dinner.
If she didn't make you give it up, would you still be able to go to sleep on your regular time?
No.
No? Why not? What would you be doing instead?
watching like YouTube or playing games and stuff.
So we definitely try not to let her use it at the table. We don't allow her to use it right before bed because obviously she needs to be getting ready for bed and we get our stories together and things like that. So she has a pretty busy day during the week. So once she comes home, she only has a few hours to herself to eat dinner, get a bath and those things. So we do like to let her watch it a couple hours a night.
I can watch whatever I want on there.
You can?
Yeah.
How long do you get to watch it for?
For like a pretty long time.
Mm-hmm. And then do mommy and daddy ever take it away?
Well, when I'm eating.
When you're eating?
Yeah.
What about when you're going to sleep?
Well, I have sleepy time music when I go to sleep.
Yeah, I can definitely say that with Chloe. She struggled with motor skills in general for a lot of her youth. She was very clumsy, would trip over herself constantly. The moment that Chloe had something like a tablet, it kind of shored her up as far as walking around. Her head went right down into the screen and she was able to kind of walk without bumping into things, and eventually she stopped falling over her own feet, which was interesting. But I liken a lot of it to her kind of having something that focused her enough to just walk a straight path every once in a while. You know, we had issues where almost every Sunday at family dinner, something was broken off of the table because, you know, 6-7-year-old Chloe just knocked over another dish or, you know, knocked someone's plate off the table. But a couple of years with the tablet and Chloe has stopped falling over her own feet. So it could just be age and experience, but you know, it was right around the same time for sure. So that was super positive. But I think overall, you know, Chloe uses her tablet a lot at school. They tend to do a ton of stuff at the school that she's at now digitally. So we have a lot of parental meetings with the school where, you know, they'll discuss what they're working on Chromebooks, and sometimes they have a tablet or a full laptop at their disposal. And it's all very enriching, you know, knowledge-based stuff. It's a totally different schooling than I was ever, you know, privy to. So they spend so much time learning that Chloe has advanced in her studies. Kendall has also continued to just do very well in her studies. I think a lot of that does fall from having so much access to anything enriching. So I do see a lot of positive that's also coming from it, aside from ignoring parents and friends. And
Sometimes there's like videos about like if in case of like an emergency you have to do this or that or something like that. So yeah, like it sometimes can like help you out if there's a situation that you don't know what to do.
In general, I do think that some children are a little too glued to their phones and to their tablets and kind of missing out on some valuable things such as going outside and playing and running, and I've kind of seen that physically in them. You can see that some of the heavier children who might not be as active. So that's a negative that I would say, but a positive, I mean, she comes back and she tells us so many different words and so many different things that she's learned from watching videos on the internet or things like that. So I think it's more positive than negative for sure.
Some of them like teach you how to like make like a marker that you can blow, and it makes like it like pretty, like pretty cool. And like some of them like teach us how to make miniature stuff for your dolls, like a miniature water bottle or actually the actual bottle.
So educationally, it's a huge win. We use this video app called Khan Academy all the time. You can search a specific math or science lesson and you find exactly what you're looking for all the time, explained in a way that's understandable for both a parent who might not remember her calculus classes from high school, to the child who may have heard the same lesson 5 times from the teacher, but if the teacher's explaining it the same 5 times and they're not getting it, these resources explain it a little bit differently, and all of a sudden you see the light bulbs go on in their eyes. Things like typing. I make both of my kids play with a typing tutorial app because that's not taught in school. And who knew how important typing would be today? You know, when I was in school, typing was a class that only the girls took, and only if they dreamt of being a secretary somewhere. But typing is such an essential skill that isn't taught anymore. I'm finding that when I see gaps in their education, I look to technology to help fill those gaps in. So I think it's a good thing. There's certainly some downsides. You had mentioned social media. I'm in that set of parents who is constantly worried about how to teach their children to navigate social media when I'm still learning how to do it as an adult. How to monitor things like Snapchat, I think, is the most evil thing out there, because parents need to watch what's happening in their kids' lives, not in a intrusive or invasive kind of way, but kids aren't equipped to make the right decisions all the time and they need their parents' help. Snapchat eliminates the ability to do that just based on the way the platform works. So I'm not a big fan of Snapchat. But here's the other side of that. Do I want my children to be the only kids in school who are not allowed to use Snapchat? Like, that sometimes is worse than the consequences of having them see some inappropriate stuff in their feed once in a while. It's a very difficult balance to strike. So social media, I'm not a huge fan because I know that there are a lot of risks and dangers out there, but technology in terms of enhancing their education and just expanding their mind, I think, is a wonderful thing.
Well, I think that it can teach me, like, if I'm doing math homework, it can teach me how to help me, and then if I'm reading a book and then I don't understand a word, I can look it up and stuff.
Definitely with Kendall, we don't really allow her to watch anything that's horror or thriller related in any way. She has a couple of games that they'll play, a Five Nights at Freddy's game and a few other kind of horror themed things. But for the most part, we try and limit them from, the stuff that's just too much language. We definitely don't allow any, sex. We don't allow anything within the realm of Showtime, HBO, any of that stuff. And it's tough sometimes to restrict that, being in a house where, her mother and I do have Showtime and Hulu and Netflix and HBO and all that good stuff. So it's there, it's accessible for them to uncover our password and things like that. Isn't that difficult? There aren't too many birthdays and numbers in the house. So when that has happened in the past, we've just, kind of let them know, you can't access this stuff. It's not, it's not right for you now. You're not an adult. There's a reason why there's a rating system. We try and fall on the rating system whenever we can when we're getting movies or, allowing for games and things like that. If it's not an E for everyone, generally we just don't approve of it. With exception of 1 or 2 things, we tend to steer clear of anything that's, just not going to be enriching for them.
Like slime and like gaming videos of people. Crossy Road. YouTube. Is like Five Nights at Freddy's games and scary games. Yeah, I watch like horror movies on Netflix and like funny comedies and stuff like that.
So there's a few different things that we let her watch. It's pretty relative to what she watches on TV. There's games and apps programs that she watches on TV that will allow her to watch. Anything educational, she watches videos from the alphabet, shapes, colors, pretty much whatever interests her at that time. She watches a lot of tutorials. how to build things, how to make doll clothes. So we kind of just keep her on that track.
I usually go on YouTube Kids.
What kind of videos do you watch on there?
Like all this music and all this.
Yeah, do you watch a TV show on there?
Just like regular kid videos.
I think that anytime you encourage kids to interact with their friends actually face to face, they realize what value is in that. So I encourage my kids to get friends over or go to their friends' houses a lot. We try to do things like cooking classes. We have a trampoline. They love going out on the trampoline. It's tough living in this part of the country because we have 6 to 8 months where we're really kind of stuck inside our houses. So I would be interested to know if there was ever a study done on what kind of screen time averages are in the South versus the North, because I think it's probably less. But we definitely take advantage of the good weather whenever we can, and they constantly hear me saying, you're going to be stuck in the house for 6 months, so go outside now while you can, while it's nice.
I sometimes read a book, I go outside, and I have a trampoline in my backyard, so I sometimes bounce on the trampoline, and I learn new flips.
Anything outside, running, playing, going to the park. We made Play-Doh the other day, so we like to do a lot of hands-on things, arts and crafts, so that kind of takes up some time as well. It's not all about being on the internet or watching her iPad.
Being a photographer, I give my kids a camera all the time. As often as possible, we will go out into the woods. We will do macro photos for 2-3 hours and lose ourselves in the woods. You know, I do a lot of toy photography, so, you know, we tend to spend a lot of time behind a digital lens. You know, but it's one that is enriching and powerful because you can tell a story with it. You don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be, you know, an academic to pour your heart and soul into something like photography. So, you know, Chloe has been doing photography with me now for, you know, probably since she was about 10. So a couple of years now where we've really gone out and spent a lot of time together. You know, she's very, very good with wildlife stuff, loves to photograph flowers. So, you know, I see a lot of positive there. Her sister's coming along right now at, you know, 9, and she loves to have the camera in her hands. You know, it's something special for them, I think, where they don't have to think so much about what they're writing. They can more express themselves with just an image. And I think that is, you know, wildly powerful. It's the reason I'm a photographer now.
I'd rather go outside and like hang out in like the snow or play with my friends outside.